Hello and welcome to the Niall podcast. On this episode, we are finally getting back to sharing the live podcasts we record at the Big Romance in Dublin, where we do monthly album listening parties. And I'm finally getting around to sharing December's edition, which featured the author and writer Dean Van Nguyen, who came and talked to me about Bloc Party Silent Alarm. We played the album in full in front of a live audience. We have chat about the album beforehand and then play the record. Obviously, as it's a live podcast, we're not sharing that full experience, but you will hear all the things we discussed about the record Bloc Party Silent Alarm, where it was placed in the UK scene at the time in 2005 upon release. At the time of writing, of course, it was 20 years since the album was released, so it kind of gave us an opportunity to reflect on the anniversary and pick the album. I'll be sharing these kind of episodes more regularly now that we're kind of back into the swing of things. Yeah, so I have the most recent episodes to share. In January, we did Massive Attack Mezzanine with Craig Fitzpatrick. In February, I did DJ Shadow Introducing with Cian from The Expert, the beat producer, one of my favourite albums of all time, and turns out his favourite album of all time. And in a few weeks, now it's already sold out because these listening parties sell out quite quickly, usually depending on the album, of course. But the next one in March is Rosalia's Lux. Decided to do my favourite album of 2025 and just give it the time it deserves on these lovely speakers that we use in the Big Romans. We're actually doing 2 parties for that. 3 tickets left for the second night, which is also in Fidelity, 24th and 25th of March. Now, there's always a ticket around if you really want to come down. That's what's happening. In April, we're going to be doing Fleet Foxes' debut album with Aoife Barry. And so more to come on the Listen Closely front. Shout out to the Big Romance and for Fidelity as well for hosting these latest parties and for being so sound and helping us out all the way along doing these parties. I think in a way these parties have kind of rekindled my focus on the album itself, albums and new albums, and certainly I think anyone paying attention to Niall in recent months will have seen a focus on albums first as opposed to songs, and some of that is literally deluge of music that's coming at us now, and it's easier to focus on a larger body of work, but it's also more rewarding in many ways. So yeah, you're going to hear us, myself and Dean from December, talk about Silent Alarm now in a minute. If you are interested in coming to Listen Closely parties, the first place you're going to hear about it usually is the Patreon, patreon.com/Niall9. The other incentive, you get half price tickets, subscription for €6 a month membership, and you also get access to the Discord and Irish music community talking about music. As I always say, look, maybe you thought about it before. It's only £6. Like, £6 is nothing these days. You could go to the shop and absentmindedly spend £6. We're an independent music platform run by myself, Niall. You know the deal. This is the Niall 9 podcast. This is the live episode. I always want to hear from you. If you want to send me an Instagram DM or an email or even get in touch to send me a message by carrier pigeon, whatever it is, we'd love to hear from you. Okay, on to Silent Alarm by Bloc Party. How are you? Welcome to Listen Closely. This is a monthly party we do the last Wednesday of the month. What we do is pick a modern classic album, one that I really like, or think I'd like to explore more, and one I'd like to hear on this lovely speaker system, which is by a West Cork man called Toby Hatchett, who's decked this place all out. He's done a few other places in town like Fidelity, Hang Die. He makes really nice sound systems and makes things sound good. So what we do is we pick an album that we play on vinyl, which of course is this month is Bloc Party Silent Alarm, and gives us an opportunity to talk about it with a guest
Dean Van Nguyen is here to talk about Silent Alarm. So welcome, Dean. And really, then we're going to get... Oh, I like it. People don't get claps before they do anything. I love it. Dean, you had a book out this year, not about Bloc Party, but I want to get it in early because it's worth mentioning. What was your book about?
Oh, thank you. It's about Tupac Shakur, so it's called...
Not the same thing as Bloc Party at all.
Yeah. It's called Words for My Comrades. It's basically about his political lineage through from his Black Panther heritage to the Black Lives Matter movement that some of his music continues to inspire. It's also a biography as well, so if you don't know much about Tupac and you want to pick it up, you'll learn about his life as well. So... yeah, that's been much of my year anyway, is from that. So it's nice to do something like this as well.
Yeah, obviously, the book is really good. So
all the bookshops.
Yeah, exactly. But we are here to talk about an album that was released 20 years ago this year, a band called Bloc Party. And I think the reason I picked this one is because last December we did The Strokes' Is This It? I want to do something kind of on a similar vein. Usually around this time of year, this is a busy place. We need a busy, loud record, which I already did. I did My Bloody Valentine 2 months ago. That was very, very, very loud. And last month we did Stankonia. Some of you from Outcast, some of you are here for that. So we do all sorts of albums. The idea is modern classics onwards. So like for me, modern classics is late 80s, 90s plus. And kind of an opportunity to talk about it. So with Bloc Party specifically, I picked it because I think it's a record that still stands up to what it was. It was a hyped record at the time when it came out in 2005. It was also a very particular example of what was going on there, especially in the UK indie scene. Dean, there was this like post-punk pop indie thing happening, right? This was what was happening at the time. So what bands were around this time?
Yeah, I think it was just a really busy era for British guitar music, and I think like the magazines, Enemy, Q Magazine, they started to believe that they in a world again where they could actually sell copies that didn't have the Gallagher brothers on the cover.
Yeah.
Like a lot of that stuff now gets thrown into the whole indie landfill indie thing. So like a lot of it has not aged well, but
that just shows you there was a lot of bands making guitar music coming out of the UK who were maybe getting much more attention than they ever would have got any other time since then anyway.
Yeah, there were a lot of bands. I think people were buying music on a decent scale. People were going to festivals a lot. Kasabian and Kaiser Chiefs, Franz Ferdinand, these kind of bands. But I think Bloc Party came along and they were college kids who came together. They recruited their bassist, I think, from an ad in Enemy, so it's like that kind of old chestnut.
Yeah,
so
and they auditioned a drummer, I think.
Yeah, so it was very organic like that, but they brought something a little bit different, where like they had this real electronic influence. I think they brought that kind of more high art sheen. Then, like a lot of that music became football chants, and I don't think you could make any Bloc Party song into a football chant.
You could sing the riffs, maybe.
I don't know, like Eating Glass, Wow Fast, maybe something like that.
Helicopter, maybe you could sing that.
Yeah,
at the darts.
So yeah, it was a little bit different at the time because like we're talking 2005 now. So
you mentioned Franz Ferdinand. They released their debut album, self-titled, in 2004. They were actually a key part of Bloc Party's reason for getting where they were, because at the time Kele Okereke had reconnected with the guitarist Russell, and they met at Reading Festival in 1999. They were both in schools in the same area in London, and they reconnected in Reading, and they thought, oh, let's make a band together. So they started out, they had a few bands. They had names included, bad names there. Union, Superheroes of BMX was one. But they settled on Bloc Party, a much better name, a much more evocative name. But they gave their demo to Alex Capranos of Franz Ferdinand at a Franz Ferdinand gig. And also Steve Lamacq from BBC Radio 1 can still break bands and still has that ability, which, is not to be understated. It's very hard to break a band in the modern era. But 2005, a co-sign from somebody like Steve Lamacq would have been a big, the industry would have been looking at. I was like, oh, Steve Lamacq's playing this band called Bloc Party. And so they got asked, there was a bit of hype building. They got asked to sign to Parlophone Records. And they said, nah, don't want to sign to a major label, actually. which is, brave of them because, I'm sure they were offered money. It was around that time, like we said, it was the time of MySpace. There were bands getting signed for demos and doing very little, because not like it is now where if you are a band now, you have to show that you have the songs. The promise alone is not enough. Do you know what I mean? It's like you have to do everything. You basically have to. I don't even know why. The only reason you sign with a major label these days is because they're a really good distributor globally. That's the only reason, and your music is already going to need that. But back then they'd be throwing advance money at a band like Bloc Party. Anyway, they didn't sign to Parlophone. They signed to Wichita, a much smaller indie label, and started releasing an EP at first, and then. Yeah, there was just a buzz building about them. I was looking back over some of the stuff there was an Irish Times live review of Bloc Party the month before, January 2005, before the album come out. Now, in fairness, a lot of the album was actually already released before at that point. So they were a band that were really buzzing. The album was just almost, for a lot of people, it was like, I know what these songs are already. But I think it still surprised them, because the thing about Bloc Party is they have this kind of angular post-punk thing going on, but they also have this pop sensibility, these kind of alternative, soft, twinkling ballads as well. I think the other thing that defines, for me, Bloc Party compared to their peers at the time was they didn't have this ironic detachment that a lot of other bands of the era had. They were quite earnest. Like Kele, as a lyricist, is quite earnest. There's songs here about, talking about... there's one song, A Helicopter, which people say is about George W. Bush, which I read today that Kele said that's not about George W. Bush. But a lot of the songs are about like being 18 to 20, alienation, franchise youth. It's about being on the cusp of adulthood and like kind of going, what the hell is next? And you can really feel that in this record. It's very sweet. It's very sweet melodies in it, but it's also very urgent. It's got it takes some of its energy from this kind of electro. They say inspired by the sensibilities of electro music, also R&B as well, and pop. And as a 4-piece, I think, Silent Alarm is where maybe they were at their best, I think, because essentially the way that they bring these guitars together with these really punchy drums, and kind of the bass is very foregrounded, it separated them. I love a band that has dry drums, like LCD Soundsystem have dry drums on it. I love that kind of disco drum beat sound, and they use it on this record, and it's very much like it's the engine. It's the one it's very forward to the record. And one of the reasons why is because there was a producer called Paul Epworth who, at that time, he was producing stuff like The Future Heads and Maximo Park, very much peers of Bloc Party. And so when it came to do the album, they decided, well, we'll do the album with Paul Epworth. Essentially, they went to Copenhagen. They'd never really recorded an album before, of course. And so Kele was this is June, July 2004. Kele took some time to warm up. But the thing about Paul Epworth is what he says, if there's a signature Epworth sound when it comes to rock and indie, it's a combination of hard-hitting upfront drums and prominent bass. He says, that's something I got from listening to Rick Rubin records, where the drums are always really punchy. It used to really wind me up hearing drum sounds where every time they hit the snare, all you'd hear was ringing. To me, I'd much rather it was a punchy and powerful and drove the backbeat, but it didn't overstate its presence. So a little bit of that Rick Rubin, Steve Albini aesthetic, and I love the warmth of disco drums, like Arthur Russell's really muted drum sounds. I guess that's what I'm trying to do, is find a balance between those two aesthetics. So according to Russell Lissack, the guitarist, the basic idea was to emulate the optimum audio representation of songs heard in a club environment by adding guitar lines on top of boosted drums and drum and bass tracks. So that was recorded, and then they came back and did some extra mixing in London. But Paul Epworth, he would go on to do quite a lot. At that time, he was doing, he was a remixer under Phones. That Future Heads remix of Kate Bush, if you were listening out there, I played, that was his remix. And he obviously went on to then start recording with Adele. He recorded with Adele and Coldplay and stuff like that as well. So where he started, he was kind of, to me, very defining part of this era as well. What was your experience of that time, 2005? What do you remember?
For like personally, yeah, I was buying like a lot of CDs at the time. I was kind of I was in college and I studying journalism, and I was getting into writing about music. And back then, you used to get free CDs if you wrote for like websites. You don't get them anymore.
It's the only thing you got.
Yeah, free CDs are free gigs. Now it's just streams, so that was the only benefit. But yeah, I'd say it was kind of an exciting time to be really into British guitar music. And with like something like this, I think someone has described this album as being like a less a great series of songs, but like a great series of like moments and segments and like fractured sounds. And I don't think that's a insult to it, because I feel like a lot of the best debut albums are often albums where the artist acts as though they might never ever get to make an album again. Yeah. So they kind of cram in as many of the ideas that they can, and maybe it's best that we go over the specifics afterwards. But like, there's so many songs where, it's like there's this high point is, the drum beat, or, Kelly will all of a sudden, go into like this more delicate melody than he was singing before. And like, it's one of those albums where between songs don't always have hard ins and hard outs. Like the whole thing kind of flows quite well. So yeah, like I think it was unique for the time, and I've kind of gone back and forth over the years of whether it's aged well. But I think listening to it a couple of times this week, I think it actually it has certainly a lot better than a lot of that stuff. Well,
I'm glad to hear that, because we're all here to hear it. So it would be awkward for you if you didn't like it.
I always knew I loved it back before, but
I know, but
a couple of times I've listened to it over the years.
There was a danger in revisiting things, and I was doing a lot of revisiting of this time, and I was like, yeah, some of it hasn't stood up, of that era hasn't stood up as well. And I think this still does, because it has that earnestness, but like you said, it's bursting with ideas, it's bursting with moments of like really great riffs, really great guitar bits, really great vocal stuff. And yeah, just the fact that I think when every era needs a band that kind of speaks to a youthful alienation and does it in a really smart way. And I think Bloc Party were certainly that for this time. So what we'll do is we'll play the record. It's on 2 discs because it's fancy. So there'll be a bit of chopping and changing. But yeah, we'll listen to the record. It's about 58 minutes in total. The only thing I didn't mention there that I wanted to include was, as well as the kind of Gang of Four post-punk kind of influence in the band's music, you can hear this kind of intricate math rock detection as well in some of the guitar stuff. I think like the likes of, maybe not at the drive-in necessarily, but that kind of intricate guitar work. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background here, but it's all serves the song really well. I think these are essentially guitar pop songs that are just using that as a language, and I think it's very exciting at the time, and I think it still sounds very exciting now. So yeah, let's have a listen to it. So yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's play Silent Alarm.
It's so cold in this house. Open mouth, swallowing us. The children sent home from school will not stop crying. I know that you're busy too. I know that you care. You got your finger on the pulse. You got your eyes everywhere, and it hurts all the time when you dare into my calls.
Give it up for Silent Alarm, Bloc Party. Dean, I'm going to ask you, what was your favourite song on that record, hearing it now?
I think my favorite songs have been She's Hearing Voices off it. It's kind of the one I think I used to put on mixes before.
It's the I really fancy you. Can I make a mixtape for you song for sure.
Oh yeah, yes, and the it's great drumming mixtape as well.
Yeah. How did it feel hearing that now, compared to what you were saying earlier on? You were like, well, I'm not sure how I feel about it sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's probably. I mean, we talked about how this was an era of landfill indie and like a lot of guitar bands, and I think a lot of that stuff was filtered through or adhered to the kind of lad culture, the kind of pubish lad culture that happened in UK at the time, and I think this is one of the few albums that actually has some dissent about it. It's like it's a kind of a strange time in the UK, really. You're coming off the back of like the whole Britpop thing, which ends up collapsing, but that's obviously very nationalistic. It coincides with like Euro '96 and Jerry Halliwell in the Union Jack dress and all that stuff, and like New Labour, and an era in which you probably might never ever see again in the UK, which seems to have like no political dissent whatsoever in culture. And then 2 years before this, of course, you have the kind of the Iraq War, which should have been a fulcrum really to build a kind of a pop culture movement against something like some resistance. And there are the odd song or two, but it doesn't really happen. Even kind of UK garage through that period is like, there are some socially conscious songs in it, but like a lot of the driving impulse of it is we can do this kind of street urban music in a completely different way than the US. So there's like a kind of patriotic bent to it. So even though it's not an overtly political album, it's probably one of the few albums of that time that actually shows some, say, dissent to it and a bit of
it has some social awareness to it, I think, as well.
It's probably that stuff probably it manifests a little bit more in the next album, and like a song like "Hunting for Witches."
It's more overt for sure.
"Hunting for Witches" is specifically, I think, about anti-Muslim bigotry on the back of the London bombings.
Yeah.
So maybe that's one of the reasons why it's like maybe has aged better than a lot of that stuff, because obviously like the UK at the moment is obviously collapsing itself, and there's so much disgruntlement. They're probably going to vote in a fascist government the next election. So maybe this is kind of timely now, where it actually has like a rhythm to it or an attitude to it that says, this is like everything is not okay. I think kind of you could probably sit it as well a little bit next to the Streets' first two albums, where it's like kind of that bomb, that rejection of lad culture a little bit. The Streets obviously kind of they parodied that a lot. They parodied the whole kind of geezer thing. But
I was listening to that album very recently. That's on the second, wasn't it?
Kind of both of them. But the second one.
But the one where specifically like the lager lounge is having a fight with the kind of weed guy.
Yeah, the second one is like the narrative one. But I like the way like they are, unashamed about their intelligence as well, and I think
I think the angular post-punk guitar stuff has that anger in it, in terms of it, like it is fiery, it is frantic, it has that energy to it. It feels like it's trying to kick back against something that's existing, and I think I feel that anyway, certainly.
Yeah, and it feels a little bit like it's on the back as well of the 90s were a good time as well for this kind of mesh between electronic and indie stuff like Chemical Brothers and that. And I know, like, we talk about like Franz Ferdinand being one of their contemporaries. Franz Ferdinand did have that kind of disco thing going, but they did it on me really entirely on guitars, bass, drums, and especially the early stuff anyway.
Arch guitar pop.
Yeah, like the moments in this album when it's just the sound of, I don't know how they created it, but the sound of tension. It's literally just this kind of like these kind of screwed sounds or whatever, and just the way it almost like it kind of turns. It's like this constant turning of a screw almost, but it's very difficult to do that without releasing the tension as well. And obviously it has those songs and those moments which are important,
like the real gentle ballads, which they were just really good at. And I think this album was Enemies album of the year in 2005. I don't think anyone would be surprised by that. It was a big record. When they came to release the second record, like later this year, they had a remix album with like M83, Dead from Above 1979, Ladytron, all kind of like contemporary peers remixing them. And then a couple of years later, we have A Weekend in the City. And I always think that Bloc Party are, for me, the last band that I was like excited by their first album, and then initially I was crushed when it came out. I was like, oh no, what's going on here. But I've been reflecting on this lately because I was listening to the album as I do again, and I was like, I think the thing is about A Weekend in the City, I don't think it's a bad album at all. I think it just suffers slightly from trying to do the follow-up and trying to be the thing, and you can sense this weariness, this expectation on it, where it's really trying hard to be the defining voice of a generation. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, like you said, it talks about things that are happening in the UK at the time, but it's also really cringe sometimes as well. It's like there's lyrics on it where it's like, East London is a vampire, it sucks the life right out of me, and I'm like, all right, man, maybe just like, go and do something else for a bit. And there's a lot of that kind of like where the heart and sleeve stuff here is very much like musically felt. It's less musically felt here, and then I guess there's always that thing where a band repeats the vibe of what they're doing on the first record with waiting for the 718 bus on the next album, and it's like, okay, it's got the twinkly, nice, like xylophone-y bits, and it's like it's exactly the same as what was on this record. But I do think like there are some really strong moments on that record. It's just, it's darker, it's heavier, it's like more aware of itself, and I think that's why the pure debut album is often the one that is like people really, it's unburdened by expectation, and I think that's why people really go back to those ones, where the second one is like, although it was the first time, and it hasn't happened for a while, where it was like the hype was building and then you're like, the disappointment, I felt it anyway. I was looking back on something I wrote on the site 2007, so that was 2007 it came out, and I like the album had leaked 2 months in advance and everyone had heard it, and I was like, God, do you remember those days when people like albums were leaked and you're like, oh yeah, I don't like the album, it's like it's not even out yet. That does not happen anymore at the same level, which I guess is a good thing. But yeah, I guess it's hard to talk about Bloc Party without talking about the aftermath of this record. They were obviously a huge band. Like I said, there's maybe a math rock, kind of a harder post-hardcore element to them. So they actually did pretty well in the UK, in the US as well. And they did okay. Like they were able to tour and they were able to play gigs in the US. And then it comes to, I don't know. I think it's a case of diminishing returns, and I think it speaks back to what it was about the first record that made it so interesting, is like the capturing that youthful alienation. It's really hard to repeat that, and I think now people are much more aware of that, of evolving from that, rather than second guessing maybe what it is. What do you think?
Yeah, I was a big user of like diditleak.com. Has a leak.com, I can't remember the name, but I was one of those, always checking it. Yeah, I don't know. I think like our Bloc Party one of those bands where this one album is better than all the rest of the good stuff put together. I think maybe. I haven't heard all the like the latter day stuff, but like that's not uncommon for this era as well. You think of like that the one first album, or at least the first two albums, were kind of the best stuff. Like even Strokes, I think you've got that there. Interpol, these kind of bands. I think most legendary artists, what you really want to be is peaking kind of album 5, 6, 7, but it was less common back then.
It does feel like it's less common now that happens, though. Do you agree?
Yeah, I don't know. Like with something like this, there is always that great problem if you become rich and successful and you divorce yourself from your roots. Does it affect your ability to make good music? I don't know. It didn't hurt like a lot of the greatest artists, but. I don't know. Is it attention? It is confusing, but I do think like I was definitely disappointed with that second album. Kele he's made some bad solo music.
So they released Weekend City 2007, then 2008 was Intimacy, and that was more like electro. I think indie had got darker, kind of had this pressure to feel like it had to speak to something bigger, and so it was less fun maybe at that time. And look, this is what happens in life. They like music reacts to what's happening and cycles happening. There's a brilliant book, and I always reference it because I think it's really worthwhile. If you were interested in this kind of thing in terms of pop culture, music culture cycles, Retromania by Simon Reynolds, a great book about how we recycle different trends in music and pop culture. I always think about it when I think about how things come back around, because it does. Like we see now the likes of the Fontaines, coming back with like the last few years, or like really like popular rock albums, stuff like that. It's really like the Enemy and all those kind of magazines where it is their vibe, where they have to be like, guitar music is dead, guitar music is back. It's like they're trying to sell stuff, so that's fine. But like, there is an element of that actually does happen, where as popular as something gets, then people kind of go, no, I can't do that now, I have to do something else. So there's a cycle of all of this. And I think the Kele stuff was like electro pop kind of solo album that he did. I think they had a complex relationship with Silent Alarm in many ways, because it was obviously the one that hit the hardest for people. But have you seen you've seen them live? Yeah, Bloc Party. No, they play pretty regularly. I mean, they're playing next year with Interpol in the 3 Arena. They have played Silent Alarm in full, but when they first did it in 2018, 2019, they did it in reverse, which I thought was like, okay, just do it the way people expect it. Like, come on. I mean, it was like, we'll do it, but we'll do it differently. I was like, yeah, well, no one listens to the album backwards, like, really. So it's a strange thing to do. But I think hopefully they are back doing it again. So hopefully they are doing it from start to finish the way people might expect. But it is probably like most albums, it's a stronger album at the start. So I kind of, in the logic, is like, oh, well, maybe we'll do it where it finishes its strong point. But like, yeah, it doesn't really hit the same.
I don't know, I think it punches out pretty strong.
It
it's
is.
funny to play that first. Yeah.
I said it to you during there. I was like, this album zips by. It zips by. For an hour-long album, it zips by. Sometimes, like, I'm not going to name too many names because I can't remember any, but sometimes you're here and we're like, oh, the last song is maybe superfluous. Maybe you don't need that one. But, like, I don't feel like this state is welcome in any way, and that's a good thing. Where I think in The Weekend in the City, there's a couple of songs towards the end where, like, I would just stop this now if I was not playing it. What else can we say about Bloc Party? A bit of trivia, maybe, about Bloc Party. Russell Lassack, the guitarist, was in an Ash tribute band before he was in Bloc Party, so that happened. He was also a trance DJ, apparently.
One thing I do know is that apparently, although it seems like a very political band name, like Bloc is spelled like, Soviet Bloc, and then Party. I mean, it's not. They had nothing to do with any of that.
They just liked it.
Just the aesthetics of dropping the K.
Yeah, I mean, it was Googleable then. Oh, Silent Alarm, which is named after an early detection system for earthquakes in Japan, as well. So, if you were to suggest some further listening based off this, would anything come to mind?
Oh God, I mean, if we're talking about that area, like some of the stuff I like. I really like those first 2 Rakes albums, actually. I mean, that's much more like this is proper MTV2 stuff. But the Rakes, they had, when they did kind of 22 Grand Job, they were a little bit more spiky, a little bit more doing a bit of a parody of the like kind of the
spiky post-punk kind of vibe,
the culture that 20 or guys in their early 20s were supposed to enter into when they were in that kind of era. And the second album is actually a bit of almost like this kind of 80s guitar pop vibe to it, which I think has aged really well as well. I mean, I do like those early Franz Ferdinand albums.
Future Heads
I really liked. I did see Future Heads live actually around Christmas time, so when you mentioned them to me earlier, and again it's like it's the kind of the first 2 albums of theirs. But it's funny, the second album didn't do well at all, so they tried to revert to the formula of the first one, and it just never hit the same. But I don't know, and like, how many of these bands really have kind of maintained the level of popularity? I guess it was like Arctic Monkeys, but they were like just a completely different level episodes of popularity.
Yeah. Well, I always feel of them as slightly different, even though a lot of those bands like Maximo Park, Future Heads, they were northern bands as well. They had that kind of northern sound to them, and Arctic Monkeys I would put in that bracket as well. Sure. Yeah,
I remember like when that first Arctic Monkeys album came out, I remember going to a comedy night and they were playing that just from start to back between the stand-up, and you're like, wow, this album's absolutely everywhere. And I don't think you get that anymore as well, just the changing nature of things.
Well, we're older now. It's okay, Dean. You could admit it. It's fine.
I am very prone to naughty nostalgia, so
I like when we did the LCD Soundsystem ones, I distinctly remember going to a party in NCAD on campus where somebody was just playing the album that leaked back to front outside in the smoking area. I was like, I love it. Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Different times. Dean, other than the Bloc Party stuff, I mentioned that you wrote a book about Tupac. If you were doing a listening party for Tupac, what album would you do?
I can't. I actually, my favorite Tupac albums are actually in reverse order. The ones that
He's
finished.
thought about this.
Yeah, not the posthumous stuff, which a lot of that isn't worthwhile. But I think I ranked them kind of Machiavelli, All Eyes on Me, Me Against the World, Strictly, and Tupacalypse Now. So it's kind of reverse order as he released them.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd probably say Machiavelli that'd be a good one. Plus, All
Okay.
Eyes on Me is very, very long, so it's like a double disc. So
Listen,
it might be stretching.
We've done
people.
a double one before. I'm not outside of the realms of picking a double album. But yeah, our next album that we're doing here is in January, obviously 28th. I was just checking the date there. We're doing Mezzanine by Massive Attack. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to sound pretty amazing in here. I'd love to hear what you guys think we should be playing. I might not do it, but I'd love to hear it. So you can DM me on Instagram, Niall09, or email me, niall@niall09.com. Surprise, surprise. That's what my email is. But yeah, thank you, Dean, for being here for this December album listen party. Appreciate it. Check out Dean's book. Christmas stocking. It fits in a Christmas stocking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
It fits in a present anyway. It fits in some wrapping paper. So
rap fans, politics fans, people who read.
Yeah. And you previously had a Ghostface Killer book as well. So
Yeah.
You know,
if Tupac's not your
this
thing,
ma-
I think it's
this man has pedigree. So
probably have to order that one online. So you might want to get that now.
Okay,
if
we'll
you
go
want
for the
Christmas.
Tupac one first anyway. Okay, thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it. I'm Niall. That's Dean. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I've never known what's good for me. Baby, you got to be more demanding. I will be yours. I'll pay for you anytime. I'll pay for you. My sadness will jump, running shorty and gorge away. And you told me you wanted to eat up my sadness. Jump right. Baby, you got to be more discerning. I've never known what's good for me. And baby, you got to be more demanding. Jump right. What are you?
Thanks for listening to the 909 podcast. If you like what we do, why not consider supporting us at patreon.com/909.